I'm Pastor Tom Arthur, just dressed up today as a minion, just in case you got confused.
I was kind of concerned.
I'm here with my co-host this morning, Nancy Dietrich. Nancy, what are you dressed up as?
Hey, a respectable co-host. I didn't know I was hanging out with a minion today, but I did my best.
Booyah, booyah. Hey, today we're continuing a series called UnAfraid. We've been looking at things that cause us fear in our culture. Today's like a big fear day, right? We kind of laugh at fear.
Scary movies.
At Halloween, we dress up. We've got all kinds of people in the studio dressed up. We should go to that studio cam and see if we can catch some of them on the screen here.
Lots of people in the house
we
today.
We want you to take a picture of yourself dressed up, whether you're at home or whether you're in the studio, and share it out on social media so that we can celebrate you dressing up today as well.
That's right.
We're talking about today, the sky is falling. Like sometimes, I mean, it has felt like the sky is falling lately.
Yes.
If you're in the Holt Public Schools, this last week was a tough week. The sky was falling. Politically, it feels like the sky is falling. Some of us, our health or financial situation, the sky is falling. Whatever the sky is falling, that's what we're going to talk about today, and hope you overcome that fear. Speaking of sky is falling, while we're listening to this first song, here's a question for you if you're watching online. Have you ever gone skydiving, and or would you?
That's the real question.
Yeah, that's a crazy question, all right? We have Mary Hunter in the studio today singing with us, and this is a song I heard, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago. Maybe It's Okay, if you're not okay. And it speaks to the moment, I think, that all of us are feeling. So here's Mary Hunter. If you are in the studio, we want to invite you to stand up and sing along. You'll find the lyrics on the screen. If you're at home, sing along as well, or answer this question about skydiving. Here it is, Mary Hunter with Maybe It's Okay.
What it hurt like to be broken, then how would I know what it feels like to be whole? If I didn't know what it cuts like to be rejected, then I wouldn't know your lover coming home. Maybe it's okay if I'm not okay, 'cause the one who holds the world is holding on to me. Maybe it's alright if I'm not alright, 'cause the one who holds the stars is holding my whole life. If I didn't know what it looked like to be dirty, then I wouldn't know what it feels like to be clean. And if all of my shame hadn't drove me to hide in the shadows, then I wouldn't know the beauty of being free. Maybe it's okay if I'm not okay, 'cause the one who holds the world is holding on to me. Maybe it's alright if I'm not alright, 'cause the one who holds the stars is holding my whole life. Father, let your kingdom come. Let your will be done here in my heart as in heaven. Sing that. Father, let your kingdom come. Let your will be done here in my heart as in heaven. If I'm not alright, 'cause the one who holds the stars is holding my whole life. I'm alive in you, the best that I deserve. Now I'm alive and I see I'm not okay. Amen.
Wow.
Man, I think the message of that song is so powerful in this time that we've been feeling like, I don't know, maybe if I'm not okay, I don't have enough faith. But, you know, if you're not okay this morning, that's okay. You're in the right place. You're in the right place. I don't know, would you be okay if you were jumping out of a plane, Nancy?
Well, big hard no on the skydiving. Actually, I'm very afraid of flying, and I'm more afraid of getting in the plane than I am jumping out of it.
Wow.
So
You're definitely not jumping out of a plane.
I might bungee jump, but yeah, I'm not getting in the plane.
You would bungee jump?
Over sky, yeah.
Really?
Doesn't involve
That's a good
plane.
would you rather, skydiving or bungee jumping?
There you go.
I never have, but I would enjoy skydiving sometime. In fact, when I was down in Florida at a conference, they have those indoor skydiving things that are like wind tunnels that go up like 5 or 6 stories. And if it wasn't ridiculously expensive, I would have done that.
I might try that.
Yeah. Mary, what about you? Skydiving?
No. Second big hard no. I would not. No.
Such a big hard no.
I'm just
over
a
here.
yeah. No.
I agree.
Lots
No
of hard
desire.
no's.
I said,
Yeah.
like, I'm happy just staying safe on the ground. Jeremy said he would do it. He was like, I won't be jumping alone. I'll have a guide, right?
Yeah, there you go. Well, you gotta, the first time you go, you gotta have a guide. You don't,
Yeah, you don't do it by
Yeah,
yourself.
You don't do it by yourself.
And then Dwayne Dietrich said, why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
That's a classic
True.
answer. It's a
All
classic
right.
answer.
Speaking like a
Alright.
pilot, yes.
By the way,
Alright.
Gretchen, what are you this morning?
I'm a social butterfly. Thank
You are a social butterfly. All right, well, hey, whether you would be willing to jump out of a perfectly good plane or not, we would love to connect with you today. Nancy, tell people how they
All
can
right.
connect with us.
Well, great. If you're here in the studio audience, we have good old-fashioned connection cards. You can fill them out, drop them in the bucket. You can also go and online, and you hit a QR code. There we go. All kinds of ways to connect with us. So, and I think Gretchen's dropping it in the chat as well.
This has
Great.
been so important through
Yeah.
this season of
Hugely.
pandemic where we don't see each other. Although we have a really nice crowd this morning in
I
here
know.
on Halloween morning,
It's
because we actually
wonderful.
see people, but we really want to connect with you. So fill out that
Exactly.
connection card.
And if you do, and you're first-time guest, you're going to get this book sent directly to your house. You'll get through it by Max Lucado. I have read this more than once. It's super,
When the sky is
super
falling,
helpful.
you'll
The
get
sky
through
is
this.
falling. It's on my bedstand, so definitely. And we have this SCCMI if you want to take a selfie. And oh, look at that.
Today especially, oh my gosh,
Selfie of the week.
pumpkins and pumpkin.
Yes.
That's Parker Ely
He's so cute.
getting a free pumpkin out there. That pumpkin is as big as he is.
the pumpkin.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Today's especially important, especially I look at all of you out there with costumes on. You got to take a selfie of yourself today and post it. Use that hashtag SCCMI because it's a contest today.
Yes.
You might
There
get
we
some
go.
free Bigby. As I was driving in, I saw that drive-through Bigby in Myers is now open.
yes.
So like super cool. I know the owners of that Bigby. Yeah, so you can
gonna be fun.
take that selfie and maybe you'll get a free Bigby gift card for winning.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So make sure you get the selfie in, and our message today begins with this.
For my entire adult life, I've had a habit of listening to NPR in the mornings to just stay up on the news. And recently I've adapted that to listening to NPR Up First. It's a 12 or 13 minute podcast each morning that just gives you the kind of headlines. And this past summer, there was this one morning where I was listening and my kids get up and Micah is standing over the speaker. And the news that morning was not good. Haiti's president had just been assassinated. There were Cuban protests against the government for food and medicine shortages. The Taliban was gaining ground in Afghanistan, and we know where that went now. And the wildfires out west were creating their own microclimates. Micah stood over the speaker and he said to me, "The news is always bad. The world is ending." So now I listen to the news in my earpods. You know, sometimes it does feel like the world is ending or the sky is falling. You know that phrase, don't you? The story of Chicken Little. Chicken Little standing under an acorn tree, and an acorn falls and hits him on the head, and he thinks, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. So he runs and he meets up with Henny Penny, and he tells Henny Penny, the sky is falling. And Henny Penny and Chicken Little run, and they find Loosey Goosey, and they say, the sky is falling. And Loosey Goosey and Henny Penny and Chicken Little run, and they find Turkey Lurkey, and they say, the sky is falling. And the whole of them keep running, and eventually they get to Foxy Loxy, and they tell Foxy Loxy the sky is falling. And Foxy Loxy says, well, I know what to do. Come on in my den. And they're never heard from again. Now, this story actually comes from a 6th century Buddhist story originally, and the main character wasn't a chicken, it was a hare or a rabbit. And there's probably a lot of morals to this story, but maybe the one for today is, it's really easy to be afraid of things we don't understand. The sky feels like it's falling. Throughout this series, we've been using the acronym for FEAR, false events appearing real. The sky appeared to be falling to Chicken Little, but it really wasn't. That was a false event appearing real, causing Chicken Little and all of the rest of the animals a lot of fear. Sometimes it really does feel like the sky is falling, and I get asked the question as a pastor about biblical prophecy and whether this is the end times or not. And you know what? Fear sells, and fear and religion sell even more. So if you donate $75 to our ministry right now, we'll send you a free book and all of these sermon series and the answers to all of your end times questions. Rick Wilson, a political consultant and media specialist, has this to say about fear and politics. Fear is the simplest emotion to tweak in a campaign ad. In 60 seconds, I can make you afraid or try to make you afraid and be relatively successful. You associate your opponent with terror, fear, crime, causing pain and uncertainty, and you have a strong chance of winning an election. If my aim as a pastor was to make you scared through this series, I could do that easily in 4 easy weeks. So here's a question I want to ask you right now. Where do you feel like the sky is falling? Let's talk about that. Lots of chatter in the studio right now. Not hard to answer this question. If you live in Holt this past week, it's felt like the sky was falling. You weren't quite sure what was a false event appearing real and what was a real event. We had some potential violence, some threats of violence. But Nancy, I sometimes have a hard time. You got Rick Wilson, who's this media consultant who knows like you can trigger people with fear. And I have a hard time discerning when it's falling and when it's not. I'll read like the New York Times editorials and think, oh, that makes a lot of sense. New York Times being left of center. I'll read the Wall Street Journal editorials, right of center, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I have a hard time piecing it out. Like I don't know enough to know whether that's an acorn or whether it's the sky. How about you, Nancy?
Well, and we're bombarded with so much information, it's kind of hard to figure out even where to start. And the way I look at it is that communication in general is where, there's the side where we're really good at pumping out information and opinions. But when you think of communication, the other half of it's listening. And we don't do such a good job with that. We jump to those emotional responses.
In
that
politics,
are,
yeah,
absolutely.
especially.
It's high emotion.
So we picked you to be co-host today because you're a counselor, professor, counseling. And we also have another counselor on the couch today. We're the counselor couch. Mary, you got to see people every day who feel like the sky's falling, whether politically or in their life. When do you feel like the sky's falling?
Well, after hearing them, right, be scared and uncertain and wondering if the new reality is the one that they can expect to stay, it makes me kind of question. I have to reground myself and remember what's true in my space, in my world, in my life, in my family.
You know, I thought that's something I've thought about. Like as a pastor, I'm often like get a front row seat to everybody's life falling apart.
Yeah.
And it does something on you that you have to sort of be able to step back and sort of find your own grounding in midst of everybody else's sky falling.
Absolutely, too.
Yeah,
You
what
have
are
to find a
people-
way to be grounded and centered, or you go right with them on the emotional
Yeah.
journey.
What are people saying on Facebook?
Well, I've had a couple people say that the sky is falling in Ann Arbor.
Oh,
Oh, man.
yeah.
But on a more serious note, Dwayne Dietrich says that he's really passionate and feels like the sky is falling with climate change.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's a literal, like it does feel like that. Yeah. So, is that it? Is Dwayne the only one?
I mean, Jim Ashman said the rising visibility and acceptance of anti-democratic authoritarianism in our country.
Yeah.
And I was like, those are a lot of big
Yeah,
words.
that's a lot of words, Jim.
That is a lot of big words.
Big
Jim.
words.
I'm afraid.
Thank
Just
you.
got very
Thanks.
afraid.
All right. Well, hey, let's get back to me at the Capitol and see where we take this. Right now we're in a series called UnAfraid, and we've been taking a look at all different kinds of things we're afraid of. Anxiety, fear of being alone, fear of the other, fear of failure. Next week we're looking at the fear of growing old, getting sick and dying. But today we're looking at the fear of, well, the world falling apart, the fear of that we all experience around the politics in our country right now. Today I'm going to try to walk a tightrope. You see, for some of us, the sky is falling. Things are really bad. But for most of us, the fear that the sky is falling is driving us to our worst selves. You see, for those of us who are on the underside of power, for those of us who have health issues or are unemployed, all of those things that happen in the building back there or the capital of our nation, they have real consequences. Political decisions about healthcare, about taxes, about voting have real life consequences, especially for those who are struggling. And, by the way, we would solve a lot of problems if we replaced the word but with and. We are so amped up on fear that we are failing to faithfully follow Jesus and love those who we would consider our enemies. How do we stay motivated to find the wisdom, to look for solutions around justice and equity, and keep those who need to be part of the conversation engaged for the solution? Here's the bedrock scripture that I want to lean on today. It's from Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. Here's what I love about Psalm 46. The sky really is falling. There are earthquakes and the mountains are crumbling into the sea. And yet Psalm 46 points us to a bedrock truth today. And that bedrock truth is this. Even if the sky is falling, God is our refuge and strength. Like me listening to NPR each morning with Micah, some of us consume bad news every single day, over and over and over. And in the same way that you are what you eat,
You become the news that you consume. So if you're struggling with the fear that the sky is falling, that the whole political world is falling apart, maybe right now is time to reconsider the consumption of your news. Unless you're a world leader, you are not Atlas holding the world on your shoulders, making sure that you know all of the news that's happening. So here's a question I'd like for us to talk about. How much news, both traditional and on social media, do you consume? And how much of it is fearful? Let's talk about that.
So after that moment with Micah where he said the world was ending, after listening to NPR in the morning with me, I started to look for some other options as well, just to see if there was something else out there. And it's hard to find news podcasts that isn't negative, or because there's so much going on. But there is one that I found recently, Axios Today, is kind of the same thing as NPR, except they always end on a positive story.
That's a good thing.
It's really kind of lifts you up a little bit after sitting in the mire for so long.
Absolutely.
How about you? What's the news like that you consume?
I really try to, as I say, manage the diet. We'll use the food analogy. If it's binge watching the news is kind of like going to the all-you-can-eat buffet, and at the end you just kind of feel gross. So
yeah.
I just, it's like healthy portions spread out over time, and I want to be informed, but you have to balance that with doing the research and reflection.
I think one of the challenges you can face with sort of the way news works is that you feel like you're going to miss out on something news-wise. And so you just binge it to make sure you don't miss out. But you're not a world leader, and if you are a world leader, you're probably not, well, maybe you are watching the news. But
hard to say.
You have other people watching the news to tell you, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Mary, how about you? What's your news consumption like?
It used to be a lot more. I used to literally have it on all day, just in the background. And then I just realized, I know I am a counselor, but I used to be a history teacher. And so I also know news is important, and knowing what's happening in the world is important, and you can't just bury your head. But then on the mental health side of it, you're not going to be effective if you're so overwhelmed that you can't tolerate it or handle what's out there. So kind of, again, limiting the input, but being informed, it's a dance that you do. And that's kind of what I do. I just and I don't get my news from social media, not because it's not always true, but because it's hard to figure out what's true. And so.
Yeah.
Good point.
Great wisdom from the counselor on the couch today, who's also our singer. Yeah. What are people saying online?
Someone said that they mostly just listen to the local news. Amanda McCord said that she used to listen to the news a lot, and now she doesn't because there's so much negativity, which is sort of where I am. I don't really go seeking out news, but I find news because other people posted it on Facebook. But then a lot of times I'm like, but is that true? And so then I will go and research it and see what's really going on, because you just never know when you see stuff,
We borrow a lot of messages from other churches and pastors, and like this series right now is from Adam Hamilton. He's usually really good at this, but there's other pastors where they will share a statistic or something, and we go research it to make sure it's true. And I'll tell you what, 50% of the time it's not. So you got a lot of pastors that a lot of people are watching and respecting who are sharing things that was a really weird way to frame that we then frame it differently when we get here. So. Let's get back to the Capitol and see where we can take this fear of the sky falling.
Church of the Resurrection, the largest United Methodist church in the United States, which originally did this series that we're adapting today, did a survey of their thousands of people to find out what people were most afraid of. And they found there was a big distinction between those who were under 50 and those who were over 50. For those who were under 50, the biggest fear that they had was the fear of failure. That was what we talked about last week. So if you missed that message, go back and check it out. But for those who are over 50, the biggest fear that they had was that the sky was falling, the direction of our country. Chapman University has a long-running poll as well, or survey of what Americans most fear. And the results that they found year after year are, well, in many ways not surprising. The first fear of Americans in 2020 and 2021 was the fear of government corruption. That was the number one fear, 6th year in running. That beat out the fear of people I love dying and a loved one contracting COVID. Almost 80% of people fear corruption of government, whereas dying and COVID get a mere 58%. Gallup takes a poll as well about how people are satisfied with the direction of our country, and they found that in January of 2020, 41% of people were satisfied. That's less than half. And in January of 2021, guess what that number plummeted to? 11%. 1/10 of our country was satisfied with the direction of our country in January of 2021. Now this number improves if the party that you voted for is in the White House, or maybe in this house behind us here. Here's the irony of what Gallup found though, because when they asked whether people were satisfied with the personal direction of their lives, not the country, but their life, they found something entirely different. In January 2020, they found that 90% were satisfied with the direction of life. 90%, January 2020. That was a new high. But what was coming? Yeah, a worldwide pandemic. Well, guess what they found the answer to that question was in January of 2021? How far do you think that dropped? Not as far as you might imagine. They found that 82% of people were still satisfied with the direction of their life. Do you see the irony there? Only 11% of people were satisfied with the direction of the country, but 82% were satisfied with the direction of their personal life. In their book, Anxious Politics, Bethany Albertson and Shauna Kushner-Gadarian say, when we're afraid, we look for news that confirms our worst fears. After 9/11, how many hours did you watch those planes slam into the World Trade Center? Over and over and over again. And on January 6th, how many times did you watch those rioters climb and scale the walls of the Capitol at Washington, D.C.? Over and over again. How divided we are as a country and also as Christians. And I, as a pastor, sometimes get stuck in the middle. I get people who come to me and complain, we don't talk about political stuff enough. And then on the other side, I get people who complain, we talk about political stuff too much. Well, we're a church. We're not a news talk show, not a current events show, although we do engage current events on a regular basis. And yes, our faith does come to bear on how we live life together, how we organize life together, and there's that word again. I can't rewrite my sermon from the time that we film it to the Sunday that it goes up every single week. That's just not possible. And that's not even to mention that I'm not an expert on every political issue that's out there. I haven't studied all of these things. There are a couple of things that I am an expert on. I'm an expert on the Bible and the history of biblical interpretation. I'm an expert on spiritual formation and how you more faithfully follow Jesus, especially in the Wesleyan tradition. And I'm an expert on running a volunteer organization called a church. I have had people over the years tell me that they didn't feel like their perspective was safe here because of something that I said, or in some cases, stuff that y'all have said out on social media. But my question to them always is this: if you leave, who will represent your perspective here with us? Who will be that person? Don't let each other just become a two-dimensional social media post. Sit down, talk it out, have a conversation, listen to one another. Try to understand more than be understood. Be curious about what the other person thinks and why they think it and what's led them to believe that. Have a real conversation, a conversation that's full of nuance and complication and doesn't turn that person who disagrees with you into just a two-dimensional social media post. Stick it out. Make a radical commitment to be in community together, even with people you disagree with. The defining mark of the Christian life isn't being politically or ideologically correct. The defining mark of the political life is how we love one another. Jesus said this: "Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." That love is both individual and corporate and communal. It's about the decisions that I make as the pastor, but it's also about the decisions that we make together. Jesus had a diverse set of closest friends and followers. On the one hand, he had Simon the Zealot, who was a violent resistor to the Roman Empire. He thought it was okay to kill a Roman soldier in a crowd. And on the other hand, he had Matthew, the tax collector, who would have been considered a Roman sellout, an assimilation to the Roman Empire. The body of Christ, the followers of Jesus, are made up of people on the left and on the right. Sometimes I get asked, "Tom, are you a conservative or are you a liberal?" Well, the answer to that question is yes. I'm a conservative in the sense that I want to hold on to the best wisdom of tradition through all of the ages, especially as we read it and understand it in the Christian tradition and in the Bible and in those who follow Jesus. And I'm a liberal or a progressive in the sense that I want to constantly be reforming our understanding of truth and knowledge and how we do life together. I want to constantly be progressing forward and opening our embrace wider and wider to more and more people to know the love of God in following Jesus. You see, the terms conservative and liberal are moving targets. If you consider yourself a conservative, there's always somebody who's more conservative than you. And if you consider yourself a liberal, there's always somebody who's more liberal than you are. In this message, I wanted to tackle one political issue and explore it from a biblical perspective. So I threw this question out on Facebook to see what political issue you wanted me to tackle in this message. Here's my Facebook post. I'm currently working on a message for our UnAfraid series about being afraid that the world is ending or the sky is falling and the political divisions in our country and world. I'm considering trying to speak to one divisive political issue from a biblical perspective in this message. If you were to pick one issue I reflected on in this message, and you might not like what I have to say about it, what would it be? Now, I got a lot of great suggestions, some that I could very much have anticipated. Gun control, abortion, the size and scope of government, disability, conspiracy theories, and the role of religion in politics. I've decided to go with the one that Amanda Shoemaker, my friend and also my personal doctor, posted as a comment to this question. You see, if we were to continue to walk down Michigan Avenue away from the Capitol, we'd run into Sparrow Hospital. And it's at Sparrow Hospital that both of my children were brought into this world. And there were three really important people that participated in that. The first one, of course, was my wife. But the second one was Amanda. And the third one was Teresa Miller, who was at the time a labor and delivery nurse, who is also a partner at Sycamore Creek. Here's a picture of Amanda and Teresa side by side, weighing Micah moments after he was born. Amanda posted this question for me to deal with in this message. Public health shouldn't be political, but since it is, ... I guess those ellipses are mine to fill in. Well, before I explore public health from a biblical perspective, I want to ask you this question. What does the Bible say about public health? And how would you answer Amanda's question? Let's talk about that.
All right, so I'm not going to answer this question because I'm going to do it in just a minute on the video.
Right.
But Nancy, you want to gird your loins and jump into the weeds here?
Thank you. Yeah, good question. The story of the Good Samaritan comes to mind.
Yeah.
So that is in the book of Luke. And a man comes across another person who's been robbed and beaten. And I'm pretty sure that the dude never asked, do you have health insurance? He just bandaged him up. He took him someplace safe. He left money to make sure he was cared for. And to me, that is what
he had like an open tab.
Yeah.
Like, do whatever, charge it to my bill, whatever it costs to help this dude.
And I'll come back and make sure it's settled. Yeah. It sort of spoke to me, that chapter.
Absolutely. That's a great story for public health, and especially there's racial dynamics there because it was a Samaritan who comes by to a Jew. So these are like ethnic groups that didn't mix in Jesus' day. All right, Mary, from the counselor's couch.
Well, of course, I think public health includes mental health, and caring for people in general is necessary. And I agree with the insurance comment, Nancy. You don't deny people for not having insurance, which is why I think what we provide here is so great. And it's especially right now in a world of wait lists, if you want to get into a counselor, and then people who don't have insurance often aren't put on those lists for that reason, right? So they are on my list, by the way. But anyway, just so you know, and that's how I see it, right? That's how I know. The other thing is, the Bible tells us to be still and to manage our anxiety by trusting in God, and if that's His instruction, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah. I love you bringing up, here at Sycamore Creek, we make this Christmas offering challenge for people to give away as much as they spend on Christmas at Christmas time, because it's not your birthday, it's Jesus' birthday.
That's right.
And one of the uses that gets used for is to provide counseling for somebody who doesn't have insurance. And I think that's living out the Good Samaritan. Like we together pool our money, we have a counselor we work with, and we make that happen.
It's love your neighbor and take care of each other. I mean, is that is the cornerstone of the Christian faith? Then
absolutely,
you got to live into that.
Are we having a civil conversation in the comments?
Yes, I think we're being pretty civil. I thought it was really cool, though. Sarah, your wife, said, the more I think about it, the Bible is full of health-related stories. And that's kind of what I was thinking. I feel like the Bible really says, we deal with illness as a community. So I think that's really crucial. I also thought it was funny that Jim said, how sick was the other guy that he had a tab with the doctor? Was the Samaritan sick too?
I'll defer to the expert on this.
Yeah, that's a great. That's one of the benefits of reading in community, because I've never even thought about that.
Right?
Why did the doctor trust the Samaritan? And who was it? Was it a Samaritan doctor? Was it a Jewish doctor?
He has a good line of credit.
That's a great line of imagination I've never thought about. Well, hey, let's get back, because you said that it is a communal thing. The Bible talks about community health constantly. So let's get back to the Capitol and see where I take public health in the Bible.
So this question of public health in the Bible is a big question, and I'm sure that somebody's written a book on it out there, and maybe I could write a book on it if I studied it enough. But it does remind me of a classic debate. Whose job is it to put the seat down on the toilet? Is it the guy's job or is it the girl's job? Well, I learned when I went to Nicaragua with Bob Trout, who is an infection preventionist at Sparrow Hospital, that the question of who puts the seat down isn't the really important question. The really important question for public health is who puts the lid down. And the answer, according to Bob, is that all of us should put the lid down. Because you know what happens if you don't put the lid down? The flies go down into the outhouse, they go down into the toilet, and they do their fly thing on your poo in the toilet, and then they fly around the house and they do their fly thing on you and your loved ones. And nobody wants that. Now you may wonder, what in the world does this have to do with the Bible and public health? Well, this question of taking care of your poo is a question that the Bible is actually interested in. It reminds me of my favorite verse from Deuteronomy. In fact, it's the backpacker's theme verse. And I'm so excited to share it with you today because I've never been able to preach on this verse in a way that actually makes sense other than just it being silly. The backpacker's theme verse is found in Deuteronomy chapter 23. And here's how it reads. Mark out an area outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourselves. Along with your weapons, have a stick with you. After you relieve yourself, dig a hole with the stick and cover your excrement. God, your God, strolls through your camp. Did you catch what the writer of Deuteronomy was actually saying there? If you poo in the camp, God might step in it, and we don't want that. The Bible is full of all kinds of books. It's like different sections of the bookstore, and the book of Deuteronomy would be in the section of the bookstore called Civil Law. In other words, how we do life together. And it turns out that when you're talking about civil law, you end up in public health with things like toilets and sanitation systems. And the Bible is really practical about this. Here the Israelites are wandering through the wilderness, and if somebody's not paying attention to who does what where, somebody else is going to step in it. And not just anybody, God strolls through your camp. God strolls through your camp. So keep your camp healthy and holy. In fact, Deuteronomy goes on to say, God is present to deliver you and give you victory over your enemies. Keep your camp holy. Don't permit anything indecent or offensive in God's eyes. Your poo out in public is an unholy sight, even to God. Now, the Bible doesn't actually have a concept of democracy in it. The writers of the Bible couldn't have imagined people voting for their leaders. The three kinds of government that the Bible knows about are theocracy, God is in charge. Moses goes up to the mountain, gets the law, comes back down and tells people what God said. The second is monarchy, with kings and queens. And the third is an empire with a dictator, like the Babylonian Empire, or the Persian Empire, or the Roman Empire. And in each case, the Bible's main emphasis is on making sure that those in power use their power to protect those who are on the underside of power. Now, when the Bible speaks to those in power, those in the government, its main emphasis is always on making sure that those who have power use their power to protect those on the underside of power so that everyone thrives. The biblical term for this word thriving is shalom, or peace. It's not just an absence of violence, but it's a well-being, a thriving of everyone in the community. Freedom in the Bible is never a freedom to do just anything you want. Freedom in the Bible is rather a freedom to use your power to serve others. So don't in camp, because somebody else might step in it and get sick, and God doesn't like it either. So here's the main question that I think the Bible would ask about public health in our day and age. How can we use our power to serve the well-being of everyone, especially those who might be most vulnerable? Now, I'm not sure there's always a clear answer to that question, but sometimes there is. And the answer may be inconvenient to you and may make you unhappy. But here's something that I want you to know about. God is less interested in your happiness than God is interested in your holiness. But what about the Declaration of Independence and the right of everyone to the pursuit of happiness? That's a worthy goal. That's a great value of our country, but it's not necessarily the primary value of our Bible. But I'm a Christian before I'm an American. And while I may have a right under the American system for the pursuit of happiness, as a follower of Jesus, there's a different requirement that I'm always chasing after. So here's a question I want us to talk about right now. Where can you use your power or freedom this week to serve somebody?
This is like the brass tacks question, right?
Right.
Like, and it's a little. Most of us are not in public health situations where we're overseeing. Although you are significant at Lansing Community College, like with public health.
Yes.
So there may be an answer somewhere in there. But I think at our church we've really tried to do this, and I've tried to do this. We have a Sycamore Creek core leadership team meeting. Core is Congregations Organizing for Racial Reconciliation. Trying to help our church move more and more towards being an anti-racist institution. And that's paying attention to a group that white people have tended to subjugate on the underside of power, and how we as a church cannot do that. So we have a team meeting this week to kind of work on that.
Great.
How about you? What's coming up that you can use your power to serve?
I've done the core training, and it's amazing. So if you have not taken, it just gives you a whole new way of looking at things. One of the things I try to actively do, like this is something I try to do all the time, is look for opportunities to have a meaningful conversation about white privilege. If I can use my white privilege and have a really good dialogue with somebody, and I still come across people who like, I've never heard of that. What is it? I don't get that. And so and not attacking people, but just really have a good conversation. And you have to look for the opportunities. And
there's a little bit you can think of that in terms of, we've still required masks as people are here. And even if you've been vaccinated, that's a kind of privilege that you have of being vaccinated. But at least my kids are sitting in the back and they haven't been vaccinated yet. So we wear masks inconveniently to use that privilege to protect those who are not yet there. Although we might be on the edge of that changing, right?
That's exciting.
That's what we're looking forward to.
More options.
How about you, Mary?
I think the see a need, fill a need mantra is always helpful, and just advocating for people, whether it's children, by wearing a mask, right, and modeling for people, ways to do things that advocate for others who may need that.
Yeah. Also, I think about, this last week at Holt in the public schools, there was some potential violence, some threats of violence, some that were false that appeared real, and some that were real. And I think about the people who are at Holt on the Holt Equity and Access team who are using their power to pay attention to the students of color and making sure they're not getting left out in that, and everything that's happening with that conversation about how we protect our kids. Because a lot of times when you increase police presence in schools, it's the students of color that bear the brunt of that. So that's a way I see that. We have a lot of people in our church who are part of the Holt Equity and Access team, so they're using their freedom and power to serve in that way this week. Any good comments on Facebook, Gretchen?
Yeah, I really love what Jim Ashman says. I think it's always important to use your freedom to speak truth to power, whether politically, socially, or in your personal life. Use your voice to challenge someone using their power to hurt themselves or others.
I like that. We can't be silent partners in this.
Yeah.
We see something wrong, and to say nothing or not to challenge the thinking. You're not doing
That
right
goes
by
back to
others.
the segment where I was talking about how let's make sure that people don't turn into 2D social media posts, but you sit down and you're curious about why they believe and what they believe and how they got there. And
Everybody's got a story.
yeah.
Yes.
I was reading an article recently that said a success in a conversation like that is that you get to the end of it and the person who disagrees with you says, I would have a conversation with you again on this.
Yeah.
That's the kind of successes I think that happen in that space. Well, hey, let's get back to the Capitol for one last little bit. Mary, you kind of hinted at it a moment ago where I end this message. So let's see where we can end this.
So is the sky falling? Our government can make a big impact on people's lives, both positively and negatively, especially for those who are on the underside of power. And ultimately, peace doesn't come from our government. Going back to Psalm 46, God is our refuge and strength. When you feel like the sky is falling, and especially when it is, certainly take action, do the just thing, but also don't forget what Psalm 46 says just a couple of verses later. Be still and know that God is God. Let's take a moment to do that right now. Let's just be still in the midst of these pillars of power, in the shadow of the Capitol here. Let's be still and know that while there are things happening behind those doors, God is still God. Take your hands with me just for a moment and put them down on your knees and take a big deep breath in and let it out. Take another big deep breath in and let it out. And then turn your hands up and let that be a symbol of receiving the grace of God in the midst of your fear that the sky is falling. Take a big deep breath in and out. In and out.
Grand earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of his voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. is well. It is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. The waves and wind still know His name. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Sing that again. Oh, it is well with my soul. Oh, it is well. It is well with my soul. Oh, it is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. Remember this. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And it is well with me.
I want us to just continue in a spirit of prayer. So have a seat or in your homes, wherever you're at. When I hear that song, it takes me back to a moment at college when it was not well with my soul, and that song was sung in the chapel service, and I kind of fell apart because it wasn't true of where I was at. And maybe today you're listening to Mary sing that, or you're singing it at home or in the place, and it's not true of where you're at. You want it to be true, but it's not there. You're not there yet. And I just want to give you some space to talk to God about where it's not yet well. Whether you're a teacher or a student at one of our Holt schools that just had a chaotic week, whether you're struggling in that, you're in the 89% of people who are discouraged by the direction of our country, just name those places to God. God, there's so much real pain. There's so much fear of pain. There's situations, especially if I'm somebody who's struggling with finances or employment or whatever the case may be, that what happens at our state and national capital affects me directly, and I'm scared of that. And God, there's a lot of us who are just struggling with the fear and how overblown that gets, how we turn other people into enemies. We just name those to you right now. God, Psalm 46 says that even if the sky is falling, even if the mountains are shaking and falling into the sea, you are still our strength and refuge. Give us that hope and assurance right now. And God, when the fear threatens to swamp us, help us to be still and know that you are God. Our confidence is in quietness and rest, that you hold us and this world in the palm of your hands. Help us, God, to be still and know that you are God. Friends, we don't do this alone. We do it together. And if there's a place where you need prayer this week, you can fill that out on the back of the connection card and know that a team will pray for you. Or you can do it on our digital connection card as well. Or you can send an email to prayers@sycamorecreekchurch.org. Let this team, this community, this church surround you and help you to be still and know that God is God. In the name of Jesus and the power of the Spirit, all who agreed said or typed, Amen. Amen. You know, we don't do this alone. We do it as a community. And so if you're watching online or if you're in the room, don't make this be the only thing that you do. Connect with us, and here's some ways that you can do that this week.
So maybe it feels like the sky is falling down all around you, but hey, there's still hope. Take one step to put the pieces back together and fill out the connection card at sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect. Maybe your world feels a little broken. This is how we can connect together like pieces of a puzzle. Head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect or scan the QR code to help us find you. Maybe you're feeling a little stuck right now. No worries. When you fill out that connection card, we'll send you a free book right to your door. You'll get through this, so while you're stuck, you're not alone. Come into the studio next week or tune in online to see Rachel Curtis, Lansing's own American Idol, live in the studio, performing and leading worship with us. We'll also be blessing medical providers in the studio next week. Come in digitally or in person to lay your hands and offer your blessing to those medical providers in our community. Not only that, but can I get a drum roll, please? Ta-da! Kids Creek is back! That's right, parents, that's right, kids. Beginning next week, come in and connect, learn, and grow in faith together in Kids Creek. After worship's all said and done next week, don't let it stop there. Next Sunday, Pastor Tom's UnAfraid small group starts at 8 p.m. on Zoom. Sign up on your connection card now, grab your free hardcover or ebook, and join Pastor Tom, 8 p.m. on Zoom, next Sunday, November 7th. While you're still in costume and your awesome decorated mask, go ahead and snap a selfie with the hashtag SCCMI. You know you want to win free coffee and drinks from Bigby, right? We can't wait to see your costumes. Thanks for celebrating with us. Happy Halloween! You filled out the connection card during all of that, right? Great. The next way you can connect is downloading Sycamore Creek's app. You can give through the app, listen to sermons online, read your Bible, all right from your phone. Just search SCCMI on any mobile device to find us on the app. Not interested in the app but still want to give online? Head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/give or scan the QR code on your screen now and you'll have options there too. Let's take it back to the studio to continue celebrating all the things that your giving makes possible.
So we've kind of technically finished our group sign-ups, but I'm trying an experiment, Nancy. I decided to do just a real short little 4-week small group at the end of this series, starting next week, my 4 favorite chapters in the book UnAfraid on Sunday nights. So if you haven't signed up for a small group, if you got through that whole thing, like, oh man, I really wanted to do it, but I didn't yet, then there's still one more chance. Join me on Sunday nights. And people's giving, by the way, has helped us give away 150 free hard copies.
Wow.
And we've also had a couple dozen of the free ebooks that we've sent out to people as well.
Nice.
So thank you so much for your giving. Speaking of giving as well, next week as we open up Kids Creek, we're able to do that because 2 guys, Jason Kelly and Thomas Oates,
Yay.
took it under their wing. Well, let's see Jason there. Let's get the Jason cam up. He's on the audio today. There,
He
there
loves
he
being
is.
in front of the camera. Yes.
Thomas took the day off today, but if the 2 of them hadn't been kind of, I mean, a lot of people put time and effort into that, but the 2 of them shepherded it week after week after week. So we are so grateful for them. So that it ends up looking like this. Woo-hoo, for next week. It is all set to welcome our kids back. And you should have gotten, if you were a family, gotten a fun mailer in the mail this week with some gifts and announcing what all is happening. So next week, we're excited to do that.
So exciting.
Yeah.
It'd be good to get the kids back.
Tonight is Halloween. Your favorite costume you've ever worn?
Ooh, okay.
We've got a little TikTok video of one that we
Nice.
found. Like, I mean, oh my gosh.
That's too adorable.
This is like
Baby burrito.
the overachieving Instagram,
Chipotle,
Pinterest family right here.
So good.
Yeah.
Ours have never been quite that awesome, but probably more maybe emotionally so. My favorite one was my family all dressed up in wigs when my wife had chemo, and we shaved her head, so we made it just a fun thing. There we all are,
That's
looking spectacular, turning that sad moment into something fun and silly.
I can relate to that. I have. Yes.
How about you? You were the respectable co-host dressed up today.
So
Is that how you
probably-
always dress up for
No,
Halloween?
My most radical was I dressed up as Madonna, not the mother of Jesus, the other one. So yeah, and it was funny. It was a coworker's party, and it's like I never dress up, so I put this costume together. She did not recognize me until
Nice.
she was like,
Nice.
I said something, and she's like, oh yeah, so yeah, I rocked it
Wow,
on
that's
that
impressive.
one. But yeah, I didn't think I could quite pull that off
Yeah.
today. So
Mary, do you ever wear costumes in counseling?
No, I'm terrible at Halloween. Which I wore orange pants today, thinking
Nice.
that would, be a little in the spirit. But no, I did dress up as a teacher once, like one of my colleagues when I was a teacher, and all the students walked in and they were like, "We know exactly who you are," and so that was fun.
It sort of reminds me of my son dressed up as me one year.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So good.
He nailed it.
He did.
He knows me. How about Gretchen and Carola? You got again, Gretchen. What are you today?
I'm a social butterfly.
Gretchen is always a pun.
I like to be puns. So this was, I was a money launderer. And then I have a nickname from high school, Gretchen Sketch.
There we go.
So
there
I
you
made
go.
a
That's
Gretchen
so
Sketch.
cute.
Halloween
So
is your
cute.
thing.
I was really proud of this one, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Carola, you got to put your mask on so we can
Oh,
see
yeah,
the full
true.
effect today. I feel like you're in a dance movie like Step Up, where they're going to have a dance off in some
Yes.
warehouse where it's raining.
Definitely. It's always raining.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
step in the puddles, make a big splash.
So, hey, next week we wrap up this whole series, UnAfraid, and we're going to be talking about the kind of ultimate fear, the fear of sickness, growing old, and death. That's, of course, so...
Uplifting, yes.
Yeah, I know. Well, we are going to hopefully
Ended on a
uplift
you
high
you
didn't
note.
ask me to host
from
that one.
that
so,
fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember who's co-hosting with me next week. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. And Rachel Curtis is going to be our
Woo,
musician
amazing.
next week. She is an American Idol contestant who's a Lansing area resident. So she's going to sing a little bit of one of her original tunes, cover something, and then lead us in a worship song as well. So that's something definitely next, not to mix. And what's next week? Opening of the Kids Creek.
Kids Creek.
By the way, next week is also a special week in the history of our church.
What is it?
It's our 21st birthday.
Right.
Next week.
We're legal.
We tried to celebrate our 20th birthday last year. We tried to sell 21st shots around on the house next week.
Okay.
Communion shots. So hey, come back next week. There's a lot to celebrate for our 21st birthday. We're finally, officially, legally, what?
I'm not sure.
We can do something. All
We're
right.
legal. Yeah, we'll keep
Well,
it.
hey, friends, until next week, be curious, be creative, be compassionate, and bye out. Peace out.